Of ESPN FC, I'm Dan Thomas. Later on in the show, Casey Keller and Craig Burley will be joining me to reflect on Sunday's FA Cup matches. But we start in La Liga. Real Madrid now 2 points clear at the top of the table after a 1-0 victory over Espanol. Gab Marcotti and Ali Moreno with me. Ali, this game instantly forgettable, all but for that amazing assist from Karim Benzema,
who continues to be the highlight in a team that is somewhat underwhelming. You're expecting more. You're expecting for them to be explosive. You're expecting for them to dominate a team like Espanol, who has been and continue to be and will continue to be at the bottom of the table in La Liga. And yet, for Real Madrid, it's Benzema and the sexy and pretty watch a lot of the time. But if there is something that you can highlight from this team and the core group of this team is that they know how to win. And at the very core, that's a very important attribute to have if you're going to win a league. And while Barcelona gave up the lead late in the game yesterday, Real Madrid never looked like giving away the lead today to Espanol. And that is the difference between two teams, that one knows how to win, one is pragmatic and efficient and effective, and the other one is finding ways of giving away points. And then you separate yourself by 2 points, and it feels like it's so much more than that.
Let's do it, shall we, Gab? I'm going to ask you, Benzema, the best informed player in the world at the moment?
Well, considering Lewandowski's season is over, yeah, I mean, I think you could probably make a case in that direction. You know, all those years when Cristiano was scoring 50 goals a season and whatnot, Benzema was accepting his role. He accepted sharing time with Gonzalo Higuain at the beginning. He accepted, not being an out-and-out, finisher and striker, not being the main man. And now that he's called upon to do it, he's delivering. He is stepping into, as much as anybody can step into Cristiano's enormous shoes, he's stepping into those shoes in terms of the scoring output and also in terms of the assist output. And he's done it with that same tremendous work rate and movement that has marked, the last couple of years. I think he's a tremendous story.
Ali?
Well, here's the thing. Gab just mentioned stepping into those shoes. And I think he has had to step into those shoes because the guys that were supposed to help him, the guys that were supposed to be the explosive players on the wings and on the outside are not doing their job. And so when you think about Eden Hazard today, yet again, another one of those games that you say, well, he was out there, he was active, he was running around, but very little impact in the game. Gareth Bale, well, who knows about that? And so if it is going to happen in the attacking half for Real Madrid, it's going to have to come from Karim Benzema. Whether it's his hold-up play, whether it's him running with the ball, whether it's him finishing the chances, everything that is productive in the final third for Real Madrid goes through Karim Benzema because everybody else is just not really playing at the level that they were expected to. And so therefore, it really is the responsibility of Karim Benzema to make this thing work.
How much did he know about that assist? How much did he mean it, Ali?
Oh, he meant all of the tap-in. It was just beautiful from Karim Benzema.
You mentioned Eden Hazard came to Real Madrid overweight, got that injury. All the talk, though, during the break was Hazard's looked great in training. He's back to his best. He's looking fit. He's looking lean. He's ready to go. Yet, pretty much 6 out of 10, you can run it before he starts at the moment. That's how little impact he seems to be having on most of the game. What's going on, Ali?
What's going on is that we're not seeing the same Eden Hazard that we were used to seeing with Chelsea, where he would throw himself in a wide area, and how many times we saw him cutting to the inside or actually beating somebody on the outside and having that change of pace. We don't see that from Eden Hazard. So he throws himself into the middle a lot where he's floating underneath Karim Benzema. And today in particular, what you can say about Real Madrid is they had so many numbers in central areas because Isco wants the ball, Benzema wants the ball, then Eden Hazard wants the ball, Toni Kroos wants the ball, and they're all coming to the ball and there's nobody stretching the back line. And so there is no space to operate. And so Benzema it's going to be the central guy. And then Hazard adds himself into that sort of crowded area, doesn't look for the spaces out wide, is unable to take advantage of something that has been part of his success as a player, and that is his change of pace and beating people in tight spaces from 1v1 situations. And so now he crowds himself into an area in which You have no space. You can't take on people, and you end up just playing 2 touches and kind of moving away from the ball and having, once again, very little impact on the play.
Go on, Gab.
No, I agree totally with what Ali said. And one thing I'd throw in is I think, having watched him up close at Chelsea and his evolution over the years, I think people don't always fully appreciate how in his last couple seasons at Chelsea, Eden Hazard had almost complete license. It was almost like he was playing his own game. He didn't have to fit into the schemes. It was all about him when he wanted it to be about him. And he was very, very productive that way. He had a freedom that he's simply not going to have at Real Madrid, where his role is to be a winger. So if he does want to be crowded, if he wants to get the ball in space and have space, and he doesn't always necessarily need space, mind you, then he has to operate in a more disciplined, wide role. And certainly Hazard and Isco together, to me that only works if Isco drops in the hole and you play Hazard up front with Benzema, which theoretically he could also do. But just like this, it's not working. They're not clicking.
Real Madrid then 2 points clear at the top of the table. That's after, of course, Barcelona dropping points yesterday against Celta Vigo. Interesting point from Luis Suarez speaking after the game, coming out and saying, what is wrong with us? That is what coaches are for, to analyse the situation. We gave everything on the field of play, and yet you are left with the feeling that we are dropping lots of points away from home, which we did not drop in other seasons. Just to put that into context, at home, in 16 games, Barcelona have dropped 2 points all season. 15 wins and a draw, yet away from home they've only managed 6 victories out of 16. The coaching that he mentions, it's kind of interesting, isn't it, Ali?
It is, but those numbers that you're talking about go all the way back to Valverde as well. It's not just Quique Setién. And so if you consider what the constant is here, is the players, not the coaches. Although I can say that perhaps Quique Setién may have mismanaged the minutes of Lionel Messi early on in this restart, where he could have given him a break against Mallorca and could have given him a break against Leganés. Didn't do so. And then yesterday, the last 10, 15 minutes, Lionel Messi went missing. Maybe he's tired, maybe he's not. We are trusting, as Quique Setién says, that Messi can regulate his minutes, he can control his body and know his body very well. But we can see the evidence out on the field that he did not participate nearly as much in the game in the last 15, 20 minutes of that match. And so therefore, you can point the finger and say, well, this is something that the coach could have done better. This is something that could have been managed better. And even the substitutions yesterday didn't quite make a lot of sense. If you're seeing out the game, if you're closing out the game, and you're a little bit of hanging on towards the end against Celta Vigo, I'm not sure what is it that Antoine Griezmann gives you that is going to really settle the team down defensively. How is it that that's the solution for you instead of, okay, we're going to solidify, we're going to get 2 lines of 4 or whatever we need to do in order to see this out? That part you can criticize. That part you can question. As what the performance of the team has been over the course of the season away from home, it's been 2 different coaches, and the players carry a lot of the responsibility.
On yesterday's show, Gab, Ali added 80% Real Madrid, 20% Barcelona to win the title. Where do you stand in the percentage game?
I'm not going to quite go that high because, we saw it again today against Espanol, who are on their 4th manager of the year. And, it's all fine and well to talk about controlling the game and whatnot. But, let's not forget, it was a 1-goal margin. So these things can turn around pretty quickly. So I'm going to go tighter than that. I'm going to go 60-60.
And then a late game, Manchester City with a 2-0 win over Newcastle. Craig and Casey with me to look back at those games. Craig, let's start, shall we, with the Arsenal game. Late drama. It looked like it was going to be an Arsenal win. United equalised, and then Ceballos with the winner.
Yeah, which saved the extra time, obviously, which nobody really wants at the moment because of all the games coming thick and fast after the lockdown. Look, we know Sheffield United haven't started particularly well since the restart. Their momentum has completely gone. So for Arsenal to go there and make the changes that they did and play some youngsters again, and Lacazette got some game time, was actually a good result. David Luiz come back in, so I'm sure that was a bit of nail biting for some of the Arsenal fans. But at the end of the day, into the semi-finals, winning away at Sheffield, where they lost in the league this season, I think was a pretty good result.
I was intrigued, Casey, from a goalkeeper's perspective. Could Henderson have done better for the Ceballos goal? Did he open himself up a little bit?
Well, I think obviously Henderson has had a fantastic season, and I think he has a tremendous future ahead of himself. And Craig made a point during the match that, with De Gea maybe making the odd mistake, that maybe Henderson goes back and challenges him. But a little bit of a learning curve for young goalkeepers at times. And delay, get more defenders back. But again, young goalkeepers, it's all part of the learning curve, and he's got a bright future ahead of himself. But that'll be something that I'm sure that him and his goalkeeping coach will have a look at, as every goalkeeper does after a match, at all those different things, and just see what could have done differently. By no means am I blaming Henderson for the goal, but that's just those little things as you get a little bit older and a little bit more experience that maybe you just sit at that near post.
I love when we're doing a co-coms, Dan, and we start talking about goalkeeping issues and what a goalkeeper should have done. And I was thinking that when that. So I'm crystal clear now in what Casey said. He could have stopped at that near post, and then Ceballos would have had more to do. But he rushed out, and at the end of the day, it was a really good finish because he went low around. The keeper always tries to make himself big. And I've got absolutely no idea what I'm talking about here about goalkeepers.
You could extend that throughout pretty much most things. Meanwhile, Chelsea through with that win against Leicester. Leicester came flying out the traps, Craig, clearly well up for it. Chelsea resisted, got themselves back into the game. Big half-time substitutions from Lampard that in the end paid off.
Yeah, and I've just seen something, I don't know if true or not, that Lampard outed a few of them in the dressing room and said, you're not good enough to be wearing the Chelsea shirt with that kind of performance. Whether that's true or not remains to be seen. Look, young Billy Gilmour had a poor first 45 minutes, but it's a learning curve for that young man. I'm not going to criticise a teenager because he got caught in the headlights a few times and Leicester did press them. Leicester's only problem, or the biggest problem, was their final third. They did not take advantage of that good play early on. You had Barnes missing opportunities. We had Vardy missing opportunities. We had Tielemans with some poor decision-making. And then Lampard, and they got taken to the cleaners for 25 minutes, but managed to come out somehow unscathed.
Christian Pulisic starting once again. A lot of eyes on him, obviously, at the moment. Casey, Frank Lampard speaking about the young American ahead of this game, saying that he could become a goal scorer like your Mane's. He has got that ability to become a Sterling. Is that just all manager talk, or do you believe it?
No, I completely believe it. I mean, if you saw him just even again today, I thought he was Chelsea's best player for a majority of the match. And again, not only what he's able to do in setting up other players, but finding himself in goal scoring season. Yes, it was a little stop-start, and he came in, scored some goals, injury issues, but now he looks to be back at full form. And his ability to just on the turn, skate past the defender and create space for his team going forward and creating goal-scoring chances, not only for himself, but his teammates. That's a rare gift. And like I said, sky's the limit.
Craig?
Yeah, I don't disagree. And honestly, I think, he's shown, he's got good pace. He's got very good balance and poise. He's already shown he can strike a very good ball. He's a good finisher. Saw that in the week when he took the opportunity that was presented to him by Manchester City. And look, you know me, Dad. I'm not just saying this because he's an American and we're an American network. Because I don't give a stuff. If I don't think a guy's going to be good enough, I'll say it. But clearly here we have an individual who's got a talent. Now, that's not going to give him a God-given right to be in the Chelsea side going forward. And listen, he knows that, right? But what Chelsea are going to have going forward is competition for spots in the team. So everyone's going to have to raise their game. And I think Pulisic, as we've gone through the season and after the lockdown, the 3 months or whatever it is, he's come back in again and he's starting to raise his game again. And Lampard took him off because I think he was carrying a little bit of an injury to the calf. He doesn't want to take any chances with this guy because he knows he's going to be a big player for them. He knows he's going to be a big option for him. And he also knows, and you pointed it out, that he's going to bring him potential goals. And that's huge for a manager. So, yeah, he's got a big future there, but he knows he has to play well. It's as simple as that.
We've heard Don talk about this, and Frank Lampard mentioned it as well in the week, talking about how he's very quietest player amongst the squad. Reading between the lines, because I can't imagine being quiet is necessarily a bad asset, What is Lampard getting at, Craig?
And sorry, in what point?
Just the fact that he's quiet, he's very shy, doesn't really, he's not outgoing in the locker room. I feel like people are trying to say something that maybe we can't read.
I think we're all reading too much into it. I think Frank Lampard was probably asked a question and he said, look, he's a quiet lad about the training ground. He keeps himself to himself. But I've said it, and I said when Don was on, a manager couldn't give a stuff if you're the loudmouth or you're the quiet guy. It's what happens in that 90 minutes plus on the field. Look, Casey will have seen it and I've seen it. I've seen some great trainers during the week. Guys that train their backside off and are the best five-a-side players in the world, and they're giving all the big stuff, chipping away. And then come a Saturday when the 60,000 howling at you, they go into their shell. So it really matters not a jaw. I mean, so everybody's different. We can't all be like you, Daniel. We can't all be the big mouth out there. So what's wrong with being quiet? I don't understand.
Coming from the ultimate shy man. Kay, so why bring it up? Why is it brought up at all?
No idea. Truly no idea. And like Craig said, I mean, you have all those different personalities within your locker room to begin with. You'll have the guys that are the gregarious, that are, cracking jokes, doing all kinds of things. And, and I've had time. I've spent time with Christian, with the national team. And, I mean, he's a professional. He goes about, he does his job. I mean, I don't necessarily consider him, a complete introvert. I just don't think he's that guy that's going to be, particularly as a young player coming into a new side, that has that personality that's just going to completely try to take over a locker room. But to Craig's point, a manager wants just a guy that's going to perform for him week in and week out. And I think the key for Christian is going to be consistency. And if he can consistently put together the performances that he has in the last couple matches for Chelsea, then he's going to consistently find himself on the pitch. And it's a club that has resources, that has young talent coming through. And there's going to be a lot of competitions for those starting 11 spots. And you have to perform week in and week out. And if he's healthy and in the form that he's in right now, he'll find himself in the starting lineup more often than not.
Manchester City, meanwhile, safely through to the semi-finals once again at the FA Cup, 2-0 victory over Newcastle. Where do we start? Andy Carroll or Dwight Gale's miss? Andy Carroll's beard is quite something, Greg.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure about. Well, I am sure about that. It's not the best. But look, at the end of the day, Man City will always give you some chances, but they completely. I mean, it was so boring to watch because they were so dominant. Yeah. But you can understand that's what Newcastle tried to do,
and to give away the silly penalty when they did. But they still, to keep it at 1-0 when it was a completely one-sided match. And Man City had so many little half chances with those little 1-2s inside the 18 that just didn't quite come off. And if you're going to beat Man City in a cup game, you need them to have one of those days where things just aren't quite coming off. And then here comes Dwight Gale, second touch of the match, 6 yards out, side footer, and skies it over the bar to make it 1-1. And you would have thought, okay, Steve Bruce, the tactics for the most part, Craig was right. It was just, let's watch Man City play keep away and hope for the odd mistake, and Newcastle got their opportunity and they didn't take it.
So the semi-final lineup is set. Arsenal will take on Manchester City, Manchester United against Chelsea. Who's the final going to be between, Craig?
Well, clearly City will be favourites in their semi-final against Arsenal. Arteta's going to have to come up with something to try and thwart that hugely talented City side going forward. That being said, when Aubameyang's in the side and he will play a fit, they're going to give you chances. So they have got that hope. I just don't think it's going to be enough because themselves defensively, I don't think are going to be good enough. So I've got City from one side. I think the second game is much harder to call. I really do. But I'm going to go with my old club purely because I think they're the more cohesive of the two sides. Although United have looked better recently, I think Lampard has got some great options in the attacking third, and I'm going to go for a Chelsea-Manchester City final.
Casey, United have beaten Chelsea 3 times already this season. Will they make it a 4th?
I don't know. I think so. But sometimes when you've beaten a team so many times, you kind of get overconfident. That team has something to prove, and they'll come in and maybe make something happen. But I think it's super tight. I think both teams are trying to figure themselves out. I think Chelsea, as Craig rightfully said, I think might be a little bit ahead of Manchester United in kind of getting their cohesiveness together. But I still have a funny feeling that Manchester United are going to come through and it's going to be an all Manchester final.
Just about in the title race, remaining 8 points off Juve at the top of the table. Gab, how did they win that game?
It was remarkable because, look, they're playing Parma. Parma are a team that sit deep, put 7 people almost on the goal line, and then attack with 3 guys. And, you know, they get their goal, they take the lead. And it's all uphill for Inter. There's no Brozovic, there's no Sensi. Eriksen's having an off day, so there's no creativity in the middle of the park. And and they basically won this through really just this little spin move. But you know, it's one of those things where you praise their grit and whatnot, but you know, not a performance to write home about.
And you could say the same about what we saw 24 hours earlier as well in the Lazio game.
With Frank Ribery early on. But, you know, I think with Lazio, it's more in Lazio's DNA to have games like these where, you know, they pounce on them. But you're right. I mean, look, whether it's the lockdown, whether it's the lack of fans, whether it was all the time off, you know, we're seeing it's like Serie A's like bizarro world right now. A ton of goals being scored, and we're getting a lot of results like these.
Away from the title race, Gab, a little bit of light maybe at the end of the tunnel for Milan fans?
Yeah, look, this is huge. Milan and Roma, you're talking about, you know, 2 teams that are competing for the same prize. Well, actually, Roma still maybe hoping for a top 4 finish, but, you know, for Milan to take points off them, it's the you can call it a Europa League 6-pointer from their perspective. I think Roma kind of made this tough on themselves as the game wore on, but Milan, I thought, fully deserving in the end. That goal from and it's a huge 3 points, and it's very important because like financially for Milan to get in the Europa League is very important, both in attracting new commercial sponsorship and commercial deals, but also simply giving their new coach next year, if they do get a new coach, and if it is Ralf Rangnick, really something tangible to work with.
Gamar got it 3-1. What that means is they've closed the gap then on Brentford to 2 points in third. Forest looking good for a playoff place. That brings us to the end of today's show. Thank you very much to Ali and Gab and Casey. For more from Craig, who's joined by Shaka Hislop for some of the worst movie reviews you'll ever see, stay tuned for Extra Time next.